Hello, come on in, sit down. My name is Onyx Turner. Very few people have known of my existence, so I doubt you have heard of me before today. I was a freelance mercenary, spy, or whatever else one might need, for I possess a particular skill no one else has ever had. I am a shapeshifter. After many years of retirement, I have decided to make a record of my exploits, and that is what this is. Welcome to the Turner Chronicles. Chronicle 6. Location: Charleston, West Virginia. Time: 3 a.m. Objective: escape the country. After fleeing from the prison complex where I was being held, I took my helicopter through the West Virginia mountains for nearly 2 hours before I got my bearing and realized I was close enough to Charleston to be able to make it to one of the airports there. This would hopefully get me out of country, but I assumed I would need at least 1 or 2 more pit stops. So, at 3 a.m., I landed at Yeager Airport in Charleston, West Virginia. After landing my helicopter, I left it and assumed a different identity, this time picking an appearance similar to one of the airport workers I passed when I was working on getting into the city. I altered his appearance slightly so that it wasn't a carbon copy, because if it was, then it's traceable, and right now I was doing my best to disappear. There's not much open at 3 a.m., but thankfully I knew how to break into and hotwire most modern vehicles. It's quite difficult with all the extra added electronics and computers, but it is possible. I guess hacking a modern car is a more appropriate term than hot wiring. So, I know how to hack most modern cars. I finally set my sights on one and decided I was going to use it to head north to New York. My vehicle of choice was a Ford F-150, newer model. It would work well enough and hopefully fly under the radar for me to be able to get out. By this point, I assumed that whoever was hosting the experiment knew I was in Charleston. Otherwise, why would you give me a helicopter if you weren't going to track it? Now, if I had a tracker on or in me, that would be an issue that I would have to deal with at a later date. So for now, I would assume that there was a tracker in the helicopter until I knew differently. So, after a couple minutes, I managed to get the F-150 up and driving, and thus turned my sights north. I drove for about 8.5 hours to get to New York City, a central hub for the East Coast of the United States. I made my way towards JFK International Airport, but I decided to stop off at a couple clothing shops first. I combined the appearances of 4 different people I saw walking around the city at random, and then proceeded to buy enough merchandise from multiple different shops to look like your run-of-the-mill New York tourist. After this little shopping expedition to hopefully throw the CIA off even further, I headed to JFK International Airport, where I boarded a plane headed for Italy. With any luck, the CIA had lost my trail, and I would not be looking over my shoulder for their agents much longer. Now, of course, I was going to be doing that for the rest of my life, but it was the assurance of no immediate threat that I was really hoping for. I still haven't gotten the vacation I hoped for. Oh well, life doesn't always give us the breaks we want it to. After my nearly 11-hour flight, I stepped off the plane into beautiful Rome. I loved this city. I've been here many times over the years, and it always will hold a special place in my heart. The beauty of the ruins, the ancient history that is contained within this city is nearly unsurpassed across the world. At least, in my opinion. The Roman Empire was one of the greatest civilizations and empires of all time, and as far as I can tell, will stay that way for the rest of time. I doubt that many will ever dispute the importance and sheer power Rome held. But I am sidetracking. So back to my tale and why I'm in Rome. I could find work here, but that really wasn't my goal. My real goal was to instead make sure I'd lost my CIA tail. Having friends in my line of work is not usually a good thing. Most of the time that term refers to people who you don't want following you. So I stayed in Italy for about a day or so before going to board a flight to Paris, France. It was at the airport, getting ready for my flight, that I noticed something that I was not happy to realize. As I was buying my tickets, I saw one of the airport workers, and he was familiar. I realized that he was not native Italian. Instead, he was Russian. In fact, he was one of the guards of the Russian politician I bugged back in Seoul. At least, I thought he was. It's hard to tell, especially with people winding their way in and out of crowds. But if my eyes did not deceive me, then I might have a bigger issue than I realized on my hands, especially if they were able to track me this far. Trying to push the thought out of my mind until I had more proof, I quickly purchased my ticket and boarded my plane. Off to Paris, and hopefully off to my usual work.